There are words that have been repeated millions of times, at funerals, in hospitals, on nights of despair. Words that have become an empty echo for some, a religious murmur for others. But there are those who still do not know that behind those words exists an ancient code, a hidden revelation that can forever change the way you face pain. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. 6 words. 6 words that David wrote, not in a marble palace, not on a golden throne, but in the desert, with hands stained with the blood of sheep he could not save, with eyes burned by the Judean sun, with a heart broken by the nights when God seemed not to answer. For David was not a religious poet writing pretty metaphors to decorate scrolls. David was a shepherd who knew the smell of death, who had seen lambs torn apart by wolves, who had spent 40 days and 40 nights alone on the hills of Bethlehem, wondering if God truly saw, if God truly listened, if God was truly there. And today, you who are here, you who have repeated this psalm 1,000 times without feeling anything, you who perhaps heard it at the funeral of someone you loved, and the words sounded hollow, empty, insufficient. Today you are going to understand why David did not say, "The Lord is a shepherd," but "The Lord is my shepherd." Because there is a vast difference between believing in a God who cares for humanity in general and discovering a God who pursues you, specifically you, in the darkest place where you have hidden. If you also seek answers in the deepest places of Scripture, if you want to understand the mysteries that transform pain into faith, then subscribe now and hit the notification bell. Because every day a new revelation awaits you. Palestine, 1,000 years before Christ, the hills of Judea stretch out like waves of dry earth under a sky that looks like molten bronze. Here, in these mountains where the heat of the day can kill and the cold of the night can freeze, a boy named David tends his father's flock. He wears nothing you would recognize as modern clothing, just a tunic of coarse wool, woven by his mother's hands, stained with the dust of 1,000 walks, a cloak over his shoulders for the nights, worn leather sandals, a staff in his right hand, a sling at his belt, and in his heart, words he did not yet know he would one day write. Scripture tells us in 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 11, "And Samuel said to Jesse, 'Are all your sons here?' And he said, 'There remains yet the youngest, and behold, he is keeping the sheep.'" The youngest, the forgotten one, the one who wasn't even invited when the prophet arrived to anoint the next king of Israel, because David was not in the house. David was where he always was, alone in the desert with the sheep. And it was there, in that desert, where David learned the secret language of God. Not in a temple, not in a synagogue, not in the midst of songs and celebrations, but in the terrible silence of the empty hills, where the only sound is the wind between the rocks and the distant bleating of a lost sheep. Because God does not speak where there is noise, God whispers where there is silence, and Psalm 23 was not born of an instant revelation, but of years, decades, of walking behind sheep that did not know they were being led, sheep that wandered away from water, sheep that ran toward danger, sheep that, when he saved them from the precipice, looked at him without understanding they had just been rescued. And David, with cracked hands and a face weathered by the sun, began to see something. He began to understand something that would change the history of faith forever. He was the sheep, and someone else was the shepherd. But this is where the revelation becomes uncomfortable. Because if God is the shepherd and we are the sheep, then we have to accept something that our modern minds, our independence, and our pride do not want to accept. Sheep are the stupidest animals in creation. A sheep does not know where the water is. A sheep does not recognize danger. A sheep can die of thirst 3 feet from a stream because it is afraid to go down the hill. A sheep can walk directly off a cliff because it is following another sheep that also doesn't know where it's going. A sheep without a shepherd dies, always, without exception, and David knew it, because David had seen sheep die in the most absurd ways, sheep that got tangled in thorns and strangled themselves trying to get free, sheep that fell into shallow crevices and just stayed there, bleating, waiting for someone to come without making any effort to get out, sheep that, in the middle of a storm, ran in the wrong direction, away from the fold, toward the darkness, toward the wolves. And you who are listening to this now, how many times have you been that sheep, How many times have you fled from the water God offered you because you were afraid of what it meant to go down the hill? How many times have you followed other blind people toward a cliff you couldn't see? How many times have you become entangled in your own decisions and screamed for help, but without being willing to do the only thing that would set you free: surrender? Because that is the first revelation of Psalm 23 that no one wants to hear. The Lord is my shepherd means I am incapable of taking care of myself. It means without him, I die. It means all the times I thought I was in control, I was 3 steps from the abyss. And the enemy, the accuser of the brethren, he who prowls like a roaring lion, he knows it. He knows that the easiest way to destroy you is not to attack you directly. It is to convince you that you don't need a shepherd. It is to whisper to you that you are smart enough, strong enough, capable enough to find your own way. Because a sheep without a shepherd does not just die. It dies believing it was being free. In the hills of Bethlehem, David learned something else, something no theologian sitting in a library could teach you. He learned that the shepherd's job is not just to guide the sheep to pleasant places. The shepherd's job is to lead the sheep through terrible places to get to the necessary places. Because the good water, the water that truly satisfies, is not on the surface. It is in the deep valleys. It is beyond the dangerous hills. It is on the other side of the desert that terrifies. And to get there, the shepherd has to lead the sheep along paths they would never choose for themselves. David writes, "He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters." But what he does not say, what is implicit in every word, is the path to get there: the dust, the heat, the sharp stones, the cold nights, the wolves howling in the distance, the constant fear, the thirst that burns the throat, and in the middle of all that, the voice of the shepherd. Trust me. Keep walking. Not yet, but soon. And here is the question that breaks most people. What do you do when God is guiding you through the desert and you don't see the water? What do you do when every step hurts and he doesn't explain why? What do you do when the path becomes so dark that you can no longer even see the shepherd? You can only hear his voice in the distance saying, "Follow me." Because that is true faith. It is not believing in God when everything is fine. It is following the shepherd when every instinct in you screams to stop, to turn back, to look for another way. David understood it because he had been that shepherd for the sheep. He had had to lead the flock through narrow gorges where the rocks rose like walls on either side, and the sky was only a thin line of light above their heads. He had seen the terror in the eyes of the sheep. He had heard their desperate bleating. He had had to push, pull, and carry those who were paralyzed by fear, and he knew with a certainty that cut to the bone that if the sheep could have spoken, they would have begged him to stop. They would have accused him of cruelty. They would have asked him why he was taking them down that terrible path when there were easier ways. But David knew something they didn't. The easy paths led to empty places, and the difficult paths led to living water. When the sky falls silent, it is because God wants to be heard in the silence. And then David writes the words that have sustained millions of broken souls throughout the centuries. "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, valley of the shadow of death." In Hebrew, Tzelmaveth. A word that signifies not just darkness, but deep darkness. Darkness that crushes, darkness where death casts its shadow over every stone, every step, every breath. David is not talking about a pretty metaphor. David is talking about a real place. The valleys between Bethlehem and the Dead Sea, gorges of black rock where the sun never fully reaches. Places where the echo of your own step sounds like something pursuing you, where the wind between the stones whispers like the voices of the dead, where the bones of sheep that did not survive lie bleached by time. David walked through those places, not once, hundreds of times. And each time he had to face the same terrifying truth. In the valley of the shadow of death, you cannot see the shepherd. It is too dark. You cannot see the other sheep. They are too scattered. All you have is the voice of the shepherd calling you from ahead. The voice that says, "Keep going, do not stop, I am here." And the revelation that broke David's heart, the revelation that made him fall to his knees in the dust and weep, was this: the shepherd does not avoid the valley of the shadow of death. the shepherd walks through it, because on the other side is the water. On the other side is rest. On the other side is the life that the sheep cannot even imagine from where they are now. But there is something more, something that only those who have truly walked through that valley understand. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. The rod, the staff, they are not tools of comfort, they are tools of correction. The staff is to pull back the sheep that is wandering away. The rod is to strike the wolves that get too close. And sometimes when a sheep is so blinded by panic that it is running toward its own destruction, the shepherd uses the rod to stop it. A sharp blow, painful, surprising. And the sheep, dazed, confused, wounded, looks at the shepherd with eyes that ask, "Why? Why did you strike me?" And the shepherd, with tears in his eyes, answers, "Because 3 more steps and you would have fallen into the abyss. I hurt you to save you." He did not punish you. He called you into the whirlwind. And now that you have walked through the valley of the shadow of death, now that you have felt the shepherd's rod and wept without understanding, now that you have shouted questions to a sky that seemed like stone and received no answers, now David shows you what is on the other side. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. A table in the middle of the battlefield, in the presence of your enemies. Not after they leave, not when you are safe, but here, now, while they still surround you, while you can still hear their threats, while you can still feel their hatred. God prepares a table for you, and those who wanted to see you destroyed have to stand and watch while God honors you, feeds you, restores you before their very eyes. The enemy bet that you would surrender. God bet that you would endure. You who are here still, you who recognize God's voice in the silence, do not let this message be lost. There are many souls searching for this same light. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment, because what comes next could change your perspective forever. Now listen. Listen with your heart and not just your ears, because what David is revealing is not abstract theology. It is spiritual survival. It is the map for the soul lost in enemy territory. You who have lost your job and don't understand why God isn't opening doors. You who have prayed for months and heaven seems deaf. You who have done everything right and yet everything went wrong. You who are in the valley of the shadow of death right now and don't see the way out. David is telling you something no one else dares to tell you. The valley is not the end. The valley is the way, and God is not punishing you for being in the valley. God is leading you through the valley because on the other side, there is something you cannot obtain any other way. There are anointings that are only received in the darkness. There are revelations that only come in the silence. There are strengths that are only forged in the fire. And God, your shepherd, loves you too much to leave you in superficial comfort when he knows you were designed for deep waters. But here is the key that transforms everything. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. It doesn't say, because I understand the plan. It doesn't say, because I see the exit. It doesn't say, because I know when it will end. It says, for thou art with me. The presence of the shepherd does not eliminate the valley, but it completely changes what the valley means, because a valley with the shepherd is a path toward life. A valley without the shepherd is a grave, and you have been trying to get out of the valley on your own. You have been looking for shortcuts. You have been demanding explanations. You have been bargaining with God as if you could see the whole map, and he were wrong. But the sheep does not bargain with the shepherd. The sheep trusts, or it dies. Ashes are the altar of the one who still waits. Look around you. Look at the lives falling apart because people believed they could be their own shepherd. The man who built a financial empire on lies and now sleeps with pills because the weight of guilt is unbearable. The woman who pursued relationships she knew were poison because she was afraid of being alone and is now more alone than ever. The young man who followed every desire of his heart and found that his heart led him directly into the void. Sheep without a shepherd, all of them, dying of thirst right next to the water, falling into abysses they could have avoided. Torn apart by wolves they saw coming but didn't have the strength to resist. And David, who was king, who had all the power in the world, who could have written, "I am the master of my fate," instead wrote, "The Lord is my shepherd." Because David knew what power does. David knew what pride costs. David knew that the day you believe you don't need a shepherd is the day you begin to die. But there is a deeper dimension here, a truth that cuts to the core. Because David doesn't just write about being guided, David writes about being restored. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Restoreth, in Hebrew, shub, which means to return, to come back, to restore. It is the word used when something broken is repaired, when something lost is found, when something dead is revived. David is confessing something that modern religion tries to hide. Your soul needs to be restored, not improved, not educated, not inspired, restored. Because it is broken, because it has strayed, because it has chosen paths of death over and over and over again, and the shepherd does not condemn you for that. The shepherd restores you, again and again, every morning, every moment you return and say, "I got lost. I don't know how I got here. I can't find my way back." And he answers, "I can, follow me." For his name's sake, not for love of you, not because you deserve it, not because you have done anything to earn it, but because his name is Restorer. His name is Redeemer. His name is the one who seeks the lost sheep, even when the other 99 are safe in the fold. And if that doesn't make you fall to your knees, if that doesn't break you and rebuild you at the same time, then you still haven't understood how lost you were. You still haven't seen the cliff he snatched you from. You still haven't measured the distance between where you were and where he brought you. True faith is born when human hope dies. Now David reaches the climax of the revelation. Now the words become so dense with meaning that every syllable weighs like molten gold. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Oil, sacred oil. The same oil that Samuel poured over David's head when he was just a shepherd boy smelling of sheep. The oil that marked kings, priests, and prophets. The oil that said, "This one is chosen, this one is set apart, this one has a purpose that transcends his current understanding." But here is the mystery that few see. The shepherd anoints the sheep, not to make it a king, but to heal it. Shepherds in David's time anointed the sheep's wounds with oil, cuts from thorns, sunburns, marks from the teeth of wolves. Every wound was treated, every pain was acknowledged. God does not ignore your wounds. God anoints them one by one with the oil of his presence, with the balm of his word, with the touch of his spirit that says, "I saw when they hurt you, I heard when you cried, and now I am going to transform every scar into a testimony." Your cup running over. Not half full, not just enough, running over, overflowing, more than you can contain, because God does not give measured portions. God pours, God floods, God overwhelms with his goodness when you finally stop trying to control how much you receive. And look at the contrast. Look at the complete revolution David has just traced. He started in the valley of the shadow of death. He ended with a cup running over. He started unable to see. He ended being anointed. He started as a terrified sheep. He ended as an honored son. And what is in the middle? The shepherd. Only the shepherd. Nothing you did. Nothing you achieved. Only the decision to trust when everything screamed at you to run. Think of Job. Think of that man who lost everything. Children, wealth, health, reputation. His friends came to comfort him and ended up accusing him. His wife told him to curse God and die. And Job, sitting in the ashes of his destroyed life with sores covering his body, with the taste of betrayal in his mouth, had to choose. Curse the shepherd or wait in the valley? And Job waited. Through 42 chapters of pain, confusion, unanswered questions, and unjust accusations, Job waited. And at the end, in the end, God did not explain why. God showed him who. God revealed to him a majesty that is beyond human understanding. And Job, the man who had demanded answers, fell on his face and said, "Now my eyes see you. Not now I understand, but now I see you." Because that is the true reward of walking through the valley of the shadow of death with the shepherd. It's not that you get explanations, it's that you get revelation. It's not that you understand the plan, it's that you know the planner. It's not that the pain disappears. It's that the pain is transformed into the altar where you finally see God as he truly is. And when you see him, when you truly see him, everything changes. Questions that seemed urgent become irrelevant. Demands you had dissolve. The anger you carried turns into worship, because you realize that while you were demanding answers, he was preparing a revelation. While you were asking for comfort, he was forging character. While you were seeking explanations, he was leading you to an encounter. Think of the disciples in the storm. Think of those terrified men in the boat while the waves threatened to swallow them, and Jesus, the Good Shepherd, walking on the very chaos that was destroying them, not stopping the storm from a distance, but entering the storm, walking upon it, showing that he is Lord even over the things that terrify you. And Peter, impulsive, desperate, cried out, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And Jesus spoke a word, only one, "Come." And Peter walked on the water. As long as he kept his eyes on the shepherd, Peter defied the laws of physics. He did the impossible. He walked over the chaos. But at the moment, the precise moment, he turned his eyes away from the shepherd and looked at the waves. He began to sink. That is your life right now. You are in the storm, and the shepherd is calling you. He is saying, "Tunk, come. Walk toward me over the very thing that terrifies you." And you have to decide. Are you going to look at the waves, or are you going to look at the shepherd? Because as long as you look at the shepherd, the impossible becomes possible. As long as you hear his voice above the roar of the storm, you can walk on the water. But the moment you start to calculate, to analyze, to doubt, you begin to sink. And here is the grace that breaks you. Even when you began to sink, even when your faith failed, the shepherd reached out his hand. Peter did not drown. Peter was caught, saved, restored in an instant. Because the shepherd never, never, never lets the sheep drown, not while there is breath in the shepherd's body. And now that you have seen the valley and the table, now that you have understood the rod and the oil, now that you know that the shepherd walks through the chaos with you and does not just pull you out of it, now David writes the final words, the words that seal the covenant, the words that transform everything that came before from a temporary experience into an eternal reality. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Shall follow. Not, perhaps they will appear. Not, if I behave well, I will reach them. They shall follow, they will pursue you. Like hunters pursuing their prey, like hounds following a trail. The goodness and mercy of God are pursuing you right now. Even when you run, even when you hide, even when you try to lose yourself in sin or distraction or despair. You cannot escape God's goodness. You cannot outpace his mercy, for he is the shepherd who leaves the 99 to find the one, and he does not rest until he finds it. And when he finds it, he does not punish it. He carries it on his shoulders, with joy, with tenderness, with love that has no end, all the days of my life, not just the good days, not just when you are on the mountaintop, all the days, the dark days, the days of betrayal, the days of sickness, the days of loss, the days when you want to give up, the days when faith feels like ashes in your mouth, all of them, without exception. And after all those days, after the whole journey, after all the valleys and all the tables, after all the darkness and all the light, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for long days. House, not a temporary camp, not an occasional visit. House, the place where you belong, the place where your name is written on the door, the place where a room has been prepared for you since before the foundation of the world. And when David says long days, in Hebrew it is Yom Orek, which literally means length of days, days that stretch toward eternity, days without end, days without night, days in the presence of the shepherd that will never, never end. So now, close your eyes, just for a moment, and breathe deeply, and whisper these words, not as a religious prayer, not as a magic formula, but as an acknowledgement of the truth that has been pursuing you all your life. The Lord is my shepherd, not just everyone's shepherd, my shepherd, the one who knows me by name, the one who counts my tears, the one who knows how many hairs are on my head, my shepherd. I shall not want, not because I have everything, but because I have the one who is everything. And in him, in his presence, in his guidance, in his provision, I have everything I truly need. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, even though the path is dark and long and lonely, I will not fear. For you are with me, not ahead of me waiting, not behind me pushing, with me, by my side, in the valley, in the darkness, in the pain, with me. And you will prepare a table before me, not when the enemies leave, not when I am safe, but here, now, in the middle of the battle. You will honor me while they watch. You will feed me while they threaten. You will restore me while they accuse. And I will live in your house, not as a visitor, not as a servant, but as a son, as an heir, as the one who was found, rescued, restored, and brought home, for long days, for all eternity with you. If this word touched your heart, if you recognize that God speaks in the whirlwind, leave just one word in the comments: I will wait, so that others going through the same trial know they are not alone. And if you wish to continue this journey through sacred mysteries, subscribe now, hit the notification bell, and allow each revelation to find you at the right moment, because God is preparing something you have not yet seen. Psalm 23 is not a pretty poem about happy sheep in green meadows. It is the battle cry of a soul that has walked through hell and discovered the shepherd was there. It is the testimony of a man who knew darkness so deep that hope seemed like a lie and yet chose to trust. David wrote these words with hands that had killed giants and hands that had been stained with innocent blood, with a heart that had worshipped God in the desert and a heart that had betrayed God in the palace, with a faith that had seen miracles and a faith that had known the deafening silence of heaven. And from that place of sanctified pain, of redeemed failure, of darkness transformed into light, David gives us the map, not to avoid the valley, but to survive it, not to understand suffering, but to find the shepherd in the midst of it. Because in the end, at the end of all things, when words run dry and explanations fail and tears dry up, only one truth will remain. A truth so simple a child can understand it, and so profound that angels study it with awe. The Lord is your shepherd, and that alone is enough. Enough for today, enough for tomorrow, enough for the valley, enough for eternity. He did not explain suffering. He revealed himself in the midst of it. And when you finally reach home, when the long days in the valley end and you enter the house of the Lord to dwell there for eternity, you will look back. You will look at the path you traveled. You will look at the scars you carry. You will look at the valleys you crossed. And you will not ask why. You will ask how. How did I survive? How did I keep walking when everything in me wanted to give up? How did I find strength when I was completely empty? And the answer will be the same as it has always been. The same one David discovered on the hills of Bethlehem. The same one Job learned in the ashes. The same one Peter experienced on the waves. The same one you are discovering now, the shepherd. It has always been the shepherd. It was never you. It was never your strength. It was never your wisdom. It was him, leading you, carrying you, guiding you through the darkness that you could not navigate alone, preparing provision that you could not see, fighting battles you didn't know were being fought, restoring a soul you didn't even know was broken, and now standing on the threshold of his house, with the table prepared before you and the oil still fresh on your forehead and the cup still running over in your hand, you finally understand. You didn't have to understand the path. You only had to trust the shepherd. The Lord is your shepherd. And never, from the first day to the last, from the deepest valley to the highest mountain, from the moment you were born to the moment you enter eternity, never, never were you alone. He was there, in every step, in every tear, in every valley of the shadow of death. And he will be there, tomorrow, and the day after, and all the days of your life, until you finally reach home and dwell in the house of the Lord.